here is a small grevillea has fallen over and is perched up on the wall. I'm going to be removing it, but the question that's always asked is, why did this happen? It wasn't much of a storm, and the tree's certainly not big, but as you can see it's got quite a spreading canopy, so we'll have a look. Now, one of the first things I notice is a bit of an unusual formation of the trunk, and very small roots that are rotted through. One larger root going off to the right there. But if you look beneath the bowl or root ball or the flare, you'll notice in the ground we've got a well decayed significant piece of tree. Well, it's a bit unusual for a grevillea. They do tend to have a protioid root system, so I'm a bit suspicious for this amount of rot, because obviously prior to failure, if we were asked to inspect this tree, we'd be looking for VTA symptoms and we wouldn't be able to look under there. You can see here the unusual formation, almost like a burl. Very unusual for the trunk to go to the ground and create this effect. You can see a bit of a root going off in this direction. This root here is what the tree pivoted on. That's very unusual trunk formation, and looking beneath, at a considerable depth beneath the tree, there's definitely a vast root system, but it's all totally rotten. So I have my suspicions already, but we normally wouldn't have seen that in a VTA. So now I'll look for, we've got very punky, decayed roots, totally rotten, no strength in that at all. So we're going to look for the VTA symptoms, and let's see if we were to pick this up doing an inspection. I'll remove some of this grass, and I didn't have to go too far, and I'm already onto it. This here is a fruiting body. It's on one of these odd formed roots that are coming off this burl style of formation. We've got, we can't see underneath, but we've got this, oh hang on, so we're doing a VTA, so normally don't forget this tree would have been standing. There's another tiny fruiting body. Got them here. And here's a white one, a real juvenile one. So we're seeing fruiting bodies this side. I can't tell much on this side, but we'll obviously, when we cut this off, it might stand up and we can have a good look at it and see what went on here. But what's clear here is, and this is what I'd be saying at a VTA, I'd look at the trunk formation going into the ground. I'd say, well, that's not normal, that's not right. Then I'd look and find those fruiting bodies, and what I suspect already is that the tree has been buried and the original root system down deeper has decayed, and it's grown adventitious roots closer to the surface. The adventitious roots have helped the tree boom on. The tree is certainly growing well and doing well, but the original root system couldn't hold the tree up, so the tree's failed. And it's unusual to get, I grind a lot of these, so it's unusual to see so much material so deep on a grevillea of this size. So I talked to the customer and I asked him, I told him what my suspicions were, and he said, oh yeah, we've filled up a little bit with soil, but mainly we filled with grass clippings. We always put our grass clippings around this tree, and over time, it was 11 years ago he planted this tree, and over time it started the decay process, and we've lifted the grade that the tree was originally planted, has risen probably by about 200 mil or 8 inches, and this is what's happened. It takes years and years for this to happen. Now this can happen also on large trees, gum trees, and then people wonder why in 10, 15, 20 years time a tree goes over and is across the road or the house. It's often what was happening to it many, many years ago. Okay, now I've cut everything off and taken it away. The stump has sat back down a little bit. To help in this, I cut this root, and it's not sitting all the way down. If it was sitting all the way down, we would see this root here back into this socket. There's the guy I've cut. It's really only got 2 roots here that are worthwhile. Looking around it, I had a good go at it with the blower. Have a look at this big fruiting body. So that was, you can see the depression where it was sitting. Have a look at the decay. You can see from that fruiting body how the decay has gone all the way into the centre. So that whole section there is all decayed. So these 2 roots here seem to be doing most of the work, or all of the work, and that's what the tree pivoted on. So going back around, another little fruiting body there, fruiting bodies all along here. Now the interesting thing is these roots here, I just touched that before and it just broke. You can see there's no strength left in these roots, and this is what decay does. And it's very hard when people say, oh, but the tree is lush and green and healthy, and you see these guys growing around it. You need to start testing, and there's lots of debates about how you test, whether you take a core, what would happen if you took a core, come the wrong way, and you saw that was all good, and you never come this way. So that's why there's usually multiple points. And again, the issue is, even if you're testing the stem, or testing what we call the flare, do you really know what's going on below ground with the roots? So looking for fruiting bodies is a big VTA warning sign. What I'm going to try and do now is, rather than stump grind this, I'm going to try and axe these roots off and flip this over and get a look underneath. Okay, I've managed to flip that out. It was a lot easier than what I thought. There was really not much holding it. The 2 roots we looked at before, I had to axe through the first one, but the other one, as you can see, was decayed also. So I hit it once, it just shattered and split off. And you can see in here, I've given this a bit of a shot with the blower. All that is rotten, and all of this in the ground is rotten. So I'll still stick the grinder in here and give it a bit of a grind. But let's have a look at the stump. Here's the 2 roots. This is the only one, probably about 120 mil diameter, that was hanging on. This little one, rotten. So that was doing nothing. Everything else was rotted out. And here's the underneath of the stump. So when you looked at the fruiting bodies on this, pretty extreme to see this volume of rot for that size fruiting body, especially on these roots. These roots were totally shot, and we've just got tiny little fruiting bodies along here, and there wasn't a whole lot of VTA, so you would have easily, if you weren't observant, you would have missed these. That one there was the largest, and it probably took out 1/3 of the circumference, like a pie shape of decay in the stem. But it was actually all the roots were rotten. Very important then, you can say, the only way you would have really, if someone said, yeah, but I don't want to lose the tree, about the only way you would have saved this was you would have had to do a root crown investigation, found all those roots, so you would have, we'll flip this the way it was sitting in the ground. So it was sort of sitting in the ground a bit bizarre. You would have done a root crown investigation, you would have found these roots, and you would have tested them. And look, I'm pushing my thumb on that, and I can push my thumb in. So you would have found those roots, tap test, oh, a bit hollow, get a screwdriver or something, gee, you would have realised, said, look, roots are shot. Oh yeah, but I still really want to keep the tree, it's still green and healthy. Well, then you have to look at your targets. In this case it was alright, but we're talking larger trees, you'd have to look at your targets and then do some severe pruning, crown reduction, whatever, if it's vital that the tree stay. Secure it. Even if you cabled it and the base rotted out, could it fall? Things like that have to be considered. and obviously expense and reasoning would have to come into it. Is it viable? Is it valid? You just remove it and replant. Has it done its days? These are grevilleas. These are fast growing, and who really knows what the life cycle of a grevillea is without human intervention? Perhaps they do just, you know, don't live long, like many wattles. Maybe they're supposed to get burnt in fires. Who really knows? Once we bring things into our urban environment and manage it the way we think they're managed, that's probably not the way they were managed for the millions of years they were here before us. Anyway, gives you a rough idea what's going on with decay. What I'm doing here is going to show you now. Normally I wouldn't try and lift anything like this. Now I'm going to show you how light this is, because normally they would weigh a fair whack and I've got to pick that up and carry it out that gate and take it somewhere. So normally I wouldn't do this, but it's a fair size. Yes, I've lost a lot of weight, about 10 kilos. All my shirts are pretty big, but I've always said it's a lot easier for me to lose weight than it is for someone to gain intelligence. It's almost a scientific fact that it's pretty much impossible to do that, but anyway, this is how heavy this is. A good lifting technique, straight back, in your arm, pick it up, look at that. Piece of cake. I reckon that whole thing only weighs 20 kilos.